right. Hello, we're here with Dan Strauss, who's running for Seattle City Council, District Number 6. Dan, would you like to give your 2-minute introduction?
Yeah, hi. My name is Dan Strauss. I'm running for Seattle City Council in District 6. I was born and raised in Ballard, and the street that I grew up on, there was electricians, plumbers, educators, the people that made the city tick, and the people who make the city, who built the city that we live in today. These are the same people that are not necessarily able to afford to live in Ballard any longer, with how much change we've experienced. So I went to Adams Elementary, Whitman Middle School, and I'll admit that I went to high school outside the district. I went to Nathan Hale, and after high school and after college, I served in AmeriCorps, and I served low-income communities all across the nation. During college, I served at a soup kitchen every day of the week for 4 years. Working with people of diverse economic backgrounds is really important to me, and it's been a real pleasure to get to serve communities all across the nation. And when I got to come back to Washington State and serve the residents of Northeast Seattle, I worked with Senator David Frock, serving the residents of Northeast Seattle, working on gun violence prevention legislation at a time that it was not popular. When the legislature wouldn't pass it, I had the opportunity to go to the Alliance for Gun Responsibility, and when we put the measure to the people, it passed with 70% of the vote in the year that Donald Trump was elected. Working for the City Council currently, I have the opportunity to work on the implementation of these laws, because I know good bills without implementation just don't work. I've worked at the City Council long enough to know where the opportunities and the roadblocks are, and not there long enough to have created them. I worked in 4 different legislative bodies, and likely have the most amount of legislative experience on this out of all candidates. I have deep roots in this community, and this community means a lot to me, and that's why I'm standing up to run, to make sure both my parents and the kids I grew up with can still in our district.
Great, thank you. And I believe we are now on summer.
If elected, what policies will you support to address the need for affordable housing and homelessness services?
Is this
Yes, you can make the minute.
Okay, great. So affordable housing and homelessness services, I grew up with both parents being social workers, so I have a very deep understanding about what wraparound services look like from an early age. When I was a 5 to 8-year-old, I was hanging out in group homes with other 5 to 8-year-olds who were experiencing the foster care system. These are some of the most traumatized youth in the foster care system. And so I created personal relationships with these people and saw them for being my friends. And it was really important for me to see that you need therapists, you need psychologists, you need teachers, you need people that will help you through your hardest days to be able to transition and transform this trauma. And so for homelessness services, there's a range, depending on what has contributed to a person experiencing homelessness, whether it's systemic within our society or whether it's within somebody. There are so many different services that need to be provided, and I'll absolutely go to bat to make sure that we have wraparound services for people who need it most. And that needs to be tied to housing, because when we know that when you don't have 4 walls and a door that locks, you're not able to necessarily provide safety for yourself. You're not necessarily able to transition and transform the world that you want to be in. So that's why housing first is very important to me. Having those 4 walls and a door that locks, whether it's a temporary interim solution to permanent housing and permanent housing. And so that's supportive housing with these wraparound services for people at risk of being homeless or have previously exited homelessness. 30 to 60% area median income for the people that make our city tick, and then 60% area median income to market rate. So we have economic diversity.
Thank you. Thank you.
Seattle has the most regressive tax code in the state with the most regressive tax code in the country. Given the repeal of the head tax and the ongoing litigation of the city income tax, how would you raise more progressive revenue to help fund city services?
Yeah, so having worked at the state legislature, both as somebody teaching everyday people how to advocate to their legislators and change legislators' minds and opinions, as well as working as staff in the legislature, I have a very good understanding, and being friends with people who are currently serving in the legislature, I have a good understanding of how we can effectively advocate and lobby the legislature. This is not just the city that is experiencing this regressive tax code, and we absolutely have to flip the upside down tax system that we have and that we're experiencing today. We all know that we need many different things in our city to make a healthy city, whether that's parks or buses or childcare that's affordable, that doesn't cost a full year's salary. These are all things that make our city healthy, and we know that nothing comes for free. And so we need to find a way that we fund these in a progressive manner. And so it's advocating to the state that's looking at how we can provide property tax deferrals for people on fixed incomes in our city who are feeling pinched right now. I just helped a friend who worked at the Sunset Bowl. They're moving out of the city this week because they can't afford the property taxes anymore. And so these are the people that make this city unique and interesting that I've grown up with. And so I would absolutely find progressive taxes that we can fund here in the city, and advocate to the legislature that currently has, that is the base of our regressive tax system.
Thank you. Alice.
Given the city's reset of the Seattle levy, the upcoming expiration of the city's bus funding tax, and
Yeah.
planning for light rail throughout most of our district, what will be your priorities in deciding how the city spends transportation funds?
Absolutely. So transportation is something that it seems boring, but it gets us around. So I pay a lot of attention to it. So I was the staff coordinator for the Interbay Regional Transportation Corridor. Long name, basically what it does is combine all of the unattractive projects that are in Interbay. So it's Ballard Bridge, Macon Bridge, freight, the things coming in and off Sound Transit 3, BNSF train. All of these projects, we combine them so that they can be attractive to the state and the federal government for funding. So projects that would otherwise not be funded, we can get more funding that wouldn't come to us otherwise. Representative Charlton was successful at bringing us money based upon our work there. And so not only would I find ways to use our existing tax revenue in an efficient and effective way to get us around town, I would bundle our projects to get us more money from the feds and the state. And so what's important for me is transit that gets us around town, where you can show up at the bus stop and not have to check the schedule, and you can know that a bus is coming and that you won't get stuck in traffic. So what this means for me is having transit-only lanes and having a connected network of transit-only lanes so that the buses don't get stuck in traffic, allowing people to be able to rely on transit and therefore not having to rely on their cars. I know that if I don't catch my bus by 6:15 p.m., I'm stuck downtown, or it takes me an hour, or I have to spend $20 to get home in a car, and that's the same cost that it is to drive downtown. And so at that point, I'm stuck with a false positive. So we need more and better transit. We need to work with King County Metro to create, to buy more buses, hire more drivers, and get us moving through the city and not stuck in gridlock.
Great, thank you. Sherry?
How will you continue the process of reforming the Seattle Police Department beyond the expiration of the consent?
Yeah, absolutely. And so the city council is pretty limited in its actual functions. It's been really interesting to watch over the last number of years with the amount of grandstanding that goes on at the city council and the lack of constituent services that I have noticed from council members. Because this really creates a false narrative of what the city council does. Budgeting is one of the primary functions of the city council. And there's one budget that the city council does not have access to, and that's the police budget. It's a line item. What goes on in there? I don't know. Really only the police know. And so I think that it's important for the public to know what we're funding when it comes to public safety, because what I've heard from community is that there's a lot of public safety concerns in our community right now. And how are we appropriately funding that? I've heard that we need more police officers and that we need more detectives. And I've heard this from the captain in the North Precinct. And I need to know how much money that's we're gonna need to put in there. And so beyond reforming the Seattle Police Department, beyond the expiration of the consent decree, I'd love to see the budget.
Thank you. Now we're ready for follow-ups. Brittany?
Mayor Durkin recently announced an upcoming e-scooter share pilot.
Yeah.
And wondering what your thoughts are on that, have you done any research, things like that?
It looked like a lot of fun. I said to myself, if there was an e-scooter, I would have scooted up here today. My friend said, well, why not a bike? I was like, well, it doesn't look like as much fun. And so, there have been a lot of safety concerns with the technology as far as the actual coding of these devices, whether people can ride them safely. I think that these have been, for the most part, mitigated and taken care of. And so at this point, I think that we should have a pilot for scooters. I definitely think that this is more of a reason to connect our bike network and our protected bike network, because we'll see that transportation options will continue to grow, and we need to keep them separate from cars. I was hit by a driver. I spent 4 days in Harborview Hospital. I might not be with you today if so many different things had gone differently. And so we need to connect the bike network, and I'm really excited for scooters.
Thank you. Ben Messens?
Can you tell me how many homeless people reside in King County right now?
I could give you numbers that statisticians tell you, and I'm going to start with that they're probably wrong. The one night count puts 11,199 to be completely specific, and what I can tell you is that probably doesn't count people who are doubling up, couch surfing, maybe living in their cars. I got to work with Senator Frock on the Homeless Student Education Act, which was the first bill to have homeless students in our public school system counted. And before 2014, we didn't know how many students in our public school system were experiencing homelessness. And we've only been collecting that data for 4 years. And that data has grown by over 5,000 students. And so I can tell you that data doesn't always collect everyone who's experiencing homelessness.
I have a follow-up real quick.
Sure.
Do you
get more
know-
than 5 seconds?
Oh, really fast.
Yeah.
Of that number, do you know how many lived in King County before they were homeless?
I've heard the 2017 number was 77% lived in King County for more than 5 years.
Thank you.
Les?
I have sort of a two-part question. The first part is, what are your positions on kind of missing middle housing? And then
Yeah.
a corollary to that is your positions on rethinking the way we approach single-family zoning.
Yeah, absolutely. So missing middle housing is the housing that has existed in Ballard for a really long time. So double duplexes and triplexes, and this is cheaper housing to build, and it creates lower rents. So the kids that I grew up with can still stay in our neighborhood, and so yes, I think that triplexes, duplexes, quads, it's really important infrastructure that we need in our community. How do we work with? Oh, sorry. And so when we look at single family zoning, what I've noticed is that with rising property taxes, one way to combat the regressiveness of our tax system is to allow for ADUs, attached accessory dwelling units, and detached accessory dwelling units, so that the people who already own the property can have a supplemental income based upon their property, and get to stay in place. Furthermore, it keeps the house that looks like the neighborhood that I grew up in, rather than knocking it down and building one of these strange looking boxes.
Great. Thank you. Summer?
So I want to go back to the progressive taxation question
Yeah.
and ask for some more details about what would you see for progressive taxation. Specifically, would you look at taxing big business as well as very wealthy individuals?
Yes, so unearned income is a great way of taxing wealth that exists and does not burden our economy necessarily. What I've seen here in our city is that we have corporate responsibility that oftentimes works. Whether it's Microsoft donating a fair amount of money into our affordable housing, whether it's REI investing in land, These are, when corporations are responsible, it's great. And when they're not responsible, we need to make sure that they're investing in the community that they're living in and that they're existing in. As I said, unearned income is one of these measures that can be used to create revenue. And I don't think that it needs to be done in a punitive way. I think that we absolutely need to identify the programs we want to fund and find that funding.
Thank you. Matt, and then Clayton.
How has working full-time affected your campaign?
Yeah, I don't have a life. I mean, it's a serious concern because I make the choice between paying rent and, because if I work less, I'll put it to you this way, my brother lives in Brooklyn, New York, and he pays less rent than I do. And I live in a building that I know was probably about $100 a month when I was growing up. I know 7 years ago, it was $1,000 a month. And I can tell you that I'm paying much more than that today. And so I get to make the choice between making rent and not sleeping. And so I'm working very hard, both in my day job, and as soon as the workday's over, I'm out here beating the pavement so that I can talk to voters, that I can talk to my neighbors, that I can talk to you, and meeting the important people in our community.
Matt, you were last here, sorry, Clayton.
I wonder if you might be interested in having a look at the Seattle Housing Authority as a mechanism for addressing homelessness, at least in part. They operate under charter, as where it seems to me that having a look at that, at the scope of that charter, which now primarily addresses Section 8 housing, but nonetheless they're a bureaucratic tool that is sitting on the shelf of the city that builds horrific buildings around town, in which people have a beak and fly, if they're lucky. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, we've been in a housing crisis for over 5 years, for more than that on many accounts. And so at this point, we need all options on the table. We need to have public-private partnerships. We need income-verified housing through public development authorities. I mean, when we don't have an economically diverse neighborhood, our city becomes less interesting. I mean, I can't tell you how much it actually breaks my heart that the kids that I grew up with can't live in my neighborhood. I mean, these are the community that I grew up in can no longer exist if we do not have affordable rent. And the parents of my friends are about to be pushed out too. And so if I want to be able to, I've always thought that I would retire here in our city. And if that's going to be the case, then some changes need to be made. And we need to change the direction that our city's going. And that's why I'm standing up to run. So all options are on the table.
Jason?
Yes, the disability community is talking about cars blocking the box, the crosswalk, and sort of like the red light cams.
Yeah.
Would you support similar legislation to prevent and enforce not blocking the box?
Yeah. More than support, I will go to the mat. I think with our city going through this transition and growth, we're in some teenage years, going from a small town or a large small town to a small, large international city. Blocking the box is, for people experiencing disabilities, it is an impediment to living your daily life. And it also is what creates the gridlock across our city. And so we need to be able to change and have these contracts with each other as people living in our city. And part of that is not blocking the box. And if people can't do that on their own and need a stick rather than just a carrot, that's what some of these blocking, some of these cameras are set up to do. I would absolutely go to the mat for that. I actually worked on that legislation working with Senator Frock in 2014. I went back and looked through all the bills I worked on, and that was one of them. So it's been a couple of years. I'll do it again.
Thank you. And was that something? No.
Yeah.
You talk a lot about rent.
Yeah.
And what your brother pays in rent in New York, and I lived in New York for 3.5 years. I got the benefit of living under rate stabilization there and rent control in San Francisco for 3 years. So I wanted to know, what are your thoughts on rent control and rent stabilization?
Yeah, so it's similar but not different than blocking the box. I mean, for 4 years, we've attempted to go down to Olympia and remove block the box, or create very simple policy choices for us to have here in Seattle. On top of that is income tax, on top of that is capital gains tax. Rent control is one of them. For me, I see a policy solution that's already in place here in the city, and that's income verified housing. So for people to be able to pay a portion of their income, and that is an associated amount of money with their income, and we can do this through public development authorities. We need to incentivize developers, we need to incentivize landowners, because this is a tool that we have today, and while it's not rent control, it ties the amount of money that you pay in rent to the amount of money that you make. And these are tools that we have today, so I would expand those first and foremost.
Thank you. And that's it for time. If you want to go ahead and do a 30-second wrap up. That'd be great.
Sure. You know, so again, my name is Dan Strauss, running for council, the city council in District 6. This community, I have deep roots in this community, and this district means a lot to me. When I've lived in Seattle, I've only lived in District 6, Upper Fremont, Green Lake, and 3 different places in Ballard, and that was before District 6 was a district. I really look forward to earning your support in this race, and I look forward to earning your vote. Thank you.
Thank you.